Hanover Borough Council Finance Committee / workshop to order. And I'd like to start with a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence, if we may. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. According to the agenda, we did not have any executive session this evening, so this is our beginning meeting. I'd like to ask for public comment, if we may, first within the room. We have two people. We have an Audrey Coppersmith. If you'd like to come to the microphone and introduce yourself, we'd be happy to hear what you have to discuss.
Good evening. My name is Audrey Coppersmith. I live at 412 Osage Drive in Hanover, Pennsylvania, in the Cherry Tree 55 Plus community. And my first issue has to do with the Cherry Tree 5, which is just a follow-up to the stormwater public engagement meeting that I attended on Thursday evening, which was very informative with the maps. And it also brought to mind with regards to some of the issues that could plague the Cherry Tree 5 project, but also the community as a whole. If this Cherry Tree 5 goes through, it already has a designated hotspot right below where the Cherry Tree 5 project is proposed. And it also has another one shortly, to the...
When you say hotspot,
Hotspot designated by the map that they said was a designated area that they needed to address for flooding issues. So I learned a lot from that meeting, so it brought more information to me as well as to the community as to why we should address those issues before they become an even bigger problem. If it's already a known hotspot, why would we put more impervious surfaces in that area, not only buildings but also parking spaces? In addition, according to the plans, there's also a road proposed right next to the York County Rail Trail, which would go right through that designated hotspot, which also then goes right up to the wetlands. So that would definitely be, a problem there. So my concern is, since we're the community in the back here, the Cherry Tree 55, there's 121 of us back here, and some of these people live right along the trail. We're gonna add, the borough owns the property in between where the Cherry Tree 5 is and our community, and if we already know that it's a designated hotspot of flooding, we don't want the borough to also have an additional issue with more flooding than what we already have. There's also additional flooding areas at McKinley and Mao, as well as on Wilson and Mao. So all of those in that area would certainly be impacted by additional impervious surfaces. In addition, along with the stormwater management, the property, I was up for, our church was doing the flower beds up at the Matthias Center, which is actually another adjoining property to this proposed project, and they have a daycare that's there. And when I talked to the pastor as well as to the leadership there, they knew nothing about it, even though they're supposedly on the contact list. And they have little ones. They have over 50.
when you say it, could you,
As far as the Cherry Tree 5 project, I approached them on Sunday.
so they weren't aware of the
They were not
development?
aware of it, and it literally abuts their property, with the Matthias Center as well as where the children play, and they would obviously have to engage in additional security as well as surveillance there for all their children that play there. So that would be, a much, bigger expense that they would have to undertake, and they weren't even aware of it. So that was another issue that I wanted to address to the borough at that time. Not to mention, I have spoken before about the traffic impact onto already overcrowded Wilson Avenue. the project doesn't comply with the neighbors, with the houses, the single-family homes, and so forth, and to drop 130 apartments right in there, it clearly would change the neighborhood drastically and not for the better. And then the last thing is also, again, on being a retired school teacher, I definitely have, I guess, a bias toward schools and the impact on larger class sizes. And Hanover Public Schools cannot handle that kind of impact on those additional students coming to the schools when they can't redistrict, because it's the borough versus Penn Township. So I would ask that the borough really seriously consider, objecting to this, Cherry Tree 5 project. My second issue has to do with minutes not being published in a timely manner for communities or whatever. I was just going down the listing of the borough things, and just some in general, just from specifically even the zoning hearing board from January 16th, 2023. Those minutes still aren't posted, and those had a lot to do with the Cherry Tree 5 project, as well as the conditions that were required. And so I'm concerned that the communities are never going to find out what exactly is happening, unless they're a part of that meeting and can find out exactly what was done or what was approved or what conditions have to be met. Some of the other ones are even from as far back as last July that aren't posted. I mean, that's the library board, but like Water and Sewer Committee, Stormwater Authority from January and March, Planning Commission from March is not posted. Even the last Hanover Borough Council from March 22nd, isn't posted. So if we want the community to know what's going on and we want them to be involved, we have to communicate, with them. So that's just my concern, and, I just hope to be heard.
I will say that the current policy for minutes is then the minutes have to be approved by the following board meeting,
Okay.
which would explain, if the perhaps whatever board only meets every month or every 3 months, then they don't reconvene in order, time to
Okay.
perhaps post those in a timely fashion, and perhaps there's a process we can reconsider, which would make those minutes more readily available.
That's
I
under the
don't know.
sunshine law. The draft minutes are not available until they're approved at the following meeting. The zoning board
Okay.
minutes were not posted because the zoning board hasn't met since January. They will be meeting in May. So then they'll be posted after that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, I'm learning in the process, and I just, like I said,
No,
I
it's a
just
very
went
good
down
question,
thing,
and thank you for-
It's just we're trying to, get people involved and so forth, but if people don't know, then you have a lot of those right-to-know requests, and, I see that on the agenda, it's an additional officer, requested for that job, and maybe some of those right-to-knows can be eliminated if we get the information out there.
There's certainly no intent on any
No,
sort of secrecy.
and that's not what I'm
but
expressing. I was just
I
sharing a
understand.
concern that I noticed. But thank
All
you
right.
for your time.
Thank you for coming this evening and participating. It's very appreciated. Next, we have Isaac Riston.
Hi, my name is Isaac. I was on my way over here to this meeting for my work, working in the borough. Transparency. Really good. All the work I've been doing. Things to talk about tonight. Really, the main one is transparent, because that information should be, but information that's so vital to our community, so I can the people at the meeting. Immediate response is, how do I get access to that? Or what's in back and going to the borough website and say, please look on there, because sometimes I'm responsible for the borough website, so that way if we're going to get questions, I can easier. Sometimes with different slides and that kind of stuff, it's in the minutes in a PDF form, so trying to find that is a process that we're looking at. I think will better serve the citizens. Lastly, on the rental inspection, the 50s to explain how it's legal, going all this year breaking down each by fee ordinance and why that is better service and how that is legal because of how things are structured. Because if you get too many fees, it's actually illegal. Unfortunately, off of all the different laws that they say, please hand this to your with understand that it's legal. That kind of stuff. Here, having good staff for the borough helps us.
Participants here in the room. Yes, ma'am.
The information, will I go for that? Does anyone, do you know where I go? To get input.
Which side are you talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so
Thank
Cherry Tree 4 was the borough's ordinance.
Right, there were other ways of doing it, or that was the only way?
Mrs. Fon-
Water preservation. They do. How do you get that information?
Through the conservation. You could request it of the York County Conservation District. They
Understand,
did what
right.
they did.
Okay.
Comment, even though I didn't sign in.
briefly, certainly.
Well, good evening. Look at it. I know a few of you have. If you please come out and walk our neighborhood and see the impact. 120, 30, I think the number's up in the air. The borough had asked me to reach out to Mr. Myers, and I spoke to Ben Myers. He didn't call me back, so I went to see him. And we asked if we could us community that home value. He didn't want to do that. He kind of asked why we didn't come forward soon. You bought it under an LLC and until we started talking, and I think the chief of police, I mentioned some of our concerns. They're going to be 600 and 700 square feet. Not that my home is big by any means, but I have a bathroom and a kitchen. So when I think about it, I have rental properties in the borough, and I wonder who's going to rent them. Mr. Myers said he thought it would be older residents. I think it's going to be lower income. And what's that going to do, number one, to our neighborhood if we have 100 and a couple hundred new residents right next to our homes that don't have any skin in the game? They're here to live, and it's about it, you know. The quality of, I know I'm getting long-winded. I'll get to my point.
I understand. I'm
But
not trying to be rude, but.
yeah, my point is that whole thing the zoning board passed with conformance to our neighborhood. You know, my point is, come out and walk our neighborhood, think about what's proposed and how that's going to affect us. And eventually, if things come back to you, if that zoning board hearing isn't overruled, decision isn't overruled by the courts, it's going to come back to you. And that's why I'm here, to come out and walk so you're educated about it and go from there. So thank you for allowing me to talk
Thank you very
last
much.
minute.
And-
Yes.
And remember, we're all residents of the same community the
Yeah.
council is, so.
But you know, when it's
We're-
in your backyard, it's
Correct.
a lot different.
Thank you very much. Okay, so do we have any digital online public comments? Mr.
If you're joining
Digital?
us via Zoom, you may unmute yourself if you'd like to address council. Good.
Okay. With that, then, I'd like to close the public comment and thank everyone for their participation, and we certainly appreciate your, skin in the game and so forth with this. I'd like to move forward to item 3, the consent agenda, items A through G. I'd like to may I have a motion
So motion.
and a second, please? Any questions? Okay, those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. In the hopper.
You don't have a copy in front of you? I do not. Grab it.
Just real quickly, so the 2024 capital and operating budget, presented a calendar to Margie just recently for her review. We want to have a 5-year capital projects roadmap, really revisit what our needs are from a equipment and vehicle standpoint primarily. We need to do a better job in assessing our grants and pursuing and tracking those grants. I think the approval by the council tonight for Delta Development, I think, is going to assist us with that. But we have made some improvements this year to really bring together all of the grants into a single database for tracking and ensuring that we maintain in compliance. The delinquent account collection, we do have increasing number of accounts that we actually do refer out for collections. It's been stymied a bit with our problems with the Postal Service. Actually getting the original bills out the door has been pretty critical right now. But again, we have a desire to have a more consistent delinquent collections program. Let's see,
What are our aged receivables in dollars or days, however you?
I do not have the age receivable balance at my
Okay.
fingertips.
That would be something good to have in our monthly council numbers,
Yeah, there are bill.
DSO or however you want to measure it.
Yeah, for the ones that actually become inactive, those are the ones we refer out to. But with the ability to cut off service, we do have a lot of leverage on delinquent accounts, and it is an administrative challenge to keep up when you do have to shut service off and then turn it back on.
Right.
Really looking at the funding approach for the new building projects that we have in the works. I know we did have in the budget a $10 million bond budgeted for this year, but along with working with Delta Development.
They need you to speak into the mic more.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right.
I didn't know they were pointing.
I've got a big mouth, so I thought it would come through anyway. Along with working with Delta Development to see what other funding options we may have from a grant or a low-cost funding approach. We'll really need to look at the timing of when we actually need to float a general obligation bond for the new buildings. I'm thinking it's more towards late in 23 or in 24 before we're really going to need the capital to do that.
Let me jump in, and then you can pick up.
Okay.
So number 6 is where Jim left off. Borough Council retreat training, something that we had talked about during my interview process that I thought would be important to bring council together and kind of go over some of your mutual goals. It'd be nice if we could do this ahead of the budget or while we're formulating 2024 budget. As I kind of pulled the 2023 goals and department goals as well as council work plan kind of together from what had been done previously, kind of what you guys had accomplished last year, but I didn't really have a good handle on what it is that you're looking to do this year, other than what we had, kind of laid out in front of us and what staff was thinking about. So the retreat would help you folks to, come together and kind of
focus in on those things that you think would be important for you to,
That's a brilliant idea and very much needed.
okay. Excellent. And that'll pass through, as you see, there's a red notation there. Where you see the red notations, that's where it'll pass through a committee to get formulated. So that will go through committee to be formulated.
Margie, do you foresee that actually being a facilitated event?
Yes, I do.
And will it be beyond just the 2024 activities?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, it would be something where we would look at future activities and almost, I don't want to say strategic plan because I believe that's overused sometimes, but, where we can look at immediate goals, short-term goals, and then longer-term goals. So certainly that would be where we would want to start. So we could have a benchmark to measure ourselves against each year as we look back and forward.
And we'd have an outside facilitator.
Outside
for it.
facilitator,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's
Yeah, we had talked
critical.
about that, yeah.
Yeah.
The next one on the list is the Fire Commission study and business plan. Here it states to be completed by quarter 2023. We've kind of ramped things up and ramped up and taken a step back at the same time with the fire study. Penn Township hadn't been overly involved in the fire study, so we wanted them to be involved. And so we took a step back, we kind of collected our thoughts. We met with Penn Township, we met with Pell again. We kind of went back to Pell and said, make sure that you understand what we'd like to see in the fire study, what is necessary as an outcome from the fire study, and that is, a positive fire commission and serving all of the citizens of the greater Hanover area and Hanover Borough. So just so you know, quarter 3, 2023 is probably way out. We're looking to have this turned around in 2 months. We'd like to have it back for presentation to council in June, with a final study on our desk in July.
This is the fire
Yes,
study
yeah.
itself.
So.
Do you think we'll be able to get it out of the existing company?
Yep, that's what we're working toward.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Public communications initiative, quarterly newsletters, website, social media maintenance. Amy's going to end up addressing a little bit of that later in the agenda, so I might just let that slide for a minute, and we'll just move down the agenda to address that. Market House Development, that also is going through the Enhancement Committee, and it is underway right now. I did have a conversation with a couple of council persons who have, and I believe the mayor has also received a phone call from their study firm, so that's working on that. All right, you want to go, Jim?
Yeah, the bond refunding, PFM, our advisor, keeps us abreast of when there's an opportunity to do the refunding with the interest rates the way they are. We don't have any opportunity probably in '23 to do any types of refunding. Document management and preservation.
Just as an aside, our average rate of our bonds percentage-wise is
Under 3, I believe.
under 3, and new ones are about
Probably
4 or
6.
5, 6.
Probably close to 6.
Yeah.
So it's really not desirable at the moment.
Right, so any refunding or principal to payments that we can defer on those is to our
Right.
benefit if we can keep the interest rates.
Which is another reason that the more we're dragging our feet on the new buildings, we'll probably be in better shape.
Absolutely.
Document management and preservation, we're looking for an intern looks like to automate or to scan more of our historical documents. Obviously, it would be very important before we relocate to the new building.
We have a very effective intern program at the Hanover Public School District that we may be able to
Leverage.
share, and I'm sure Mr. Kress can share some of those contacts with you.
Okay. We did kick off the new Springbrook Enterprise Software project. We are having a little bit of a reshuffling of the timing. We're going to be focusing on the financials is really the foundational part of the financial system, followed closely by the utility billing, which is our life's blood for the borough. We are going to push off HR and payroll until after the first of the year, but our goal is to get the heart of the financial application, the billing in place and up and running this year.
Hey, Jim, when doing that, will will the system allow us, or are we gonna be looking at a better online bill, online payment?
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, what we got now is highway robbery. And how the fees work and how it, it's very difficult to deal with.
No, we're definitely way behind in technology, and Springbrook should give us a lot more capability. But with any type of technology, adoption is critical.
Yeah.
So we have to, consider that even with all the capabilities, we'll have to push very hard to get our customers to adopt the new processes. We're going to do more active financial reporting to departments to keep them on track for this year, and to develop a pilot for payment in lieu of tax program. That's it for our area.
Jim, on the Delta, where we're talking about going with them, they do not guarantee success, but they will do the best they can for us. And they will also take on other clientele that will be divvying for that money as well. Am I to understand in what I'm reading that we will be paying them a fee monthly for 15 months at $5,500, or am I misjudging or have not taken in what we'll be paying them in order to achieve, to see if they can obtain us proper funding?
Right.
Is that what we're paying out? Because if we're paying out for 15 months, so we're heading into about $82,000. Is it worth going with Delta? Is there anyone else out there that can give us a better deal? Because when I saw what they were, the whole contract, I mean, I read it till about 3 a.m, and it said no guarantee. And I understand that, because they can't go in and guarantee. They don't know what they're going to meet when it comes into federal and state funding, other grants that are out there. Do you have high hopes on this program? I think I need to hear from you on it. I just looked at the amount we're paying monthly
Yep.
for 15 months. So if you could help me a little bit to
Sure,
be at ease
sure.
with this?
Well, actually, the monthly retainer fee went from 6,500 down to 5,500, so it went down a little bit. The initial timeframe with the agreement is for 15 months, but it's also cancelable at any time with 30 days' notice.
Right.
So if we get, 3 or 4 months into the process, it's just not working, or there's not any possibility of anything beneficial coming our way, the council can always, we can always terminate the agreement. But this, my understanding is that this is a common situation with this type of consultant, where they do have a retainer, because they are going to be doing a considerable amount of lead work on our behalf and sourcing. And so it's a retainer fee plus a commission, so they do get a part of the commission once we do receive the grant. They have been very successful from their resume that we've seen for other jurisdictions. I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll be successful for
On
us.
that commission fee, not to push in on what you're telling me, that's a 3% usually. Am I correct on
That's the
with
one
what
that's
I'm
in their
reading?
agreement. I don't know what the usual thing is.
Okay.
But one of the things that it's difficult for us is, and I'm learning this as I've been here almost a year, the grant arena is very complex. It's very administratively much of a burden to stay after, and it's something that's constant. And there's no guarantee with all the investment and time and effort that you're going to get something,
It's also very relationship-based.
and it's very relationship-based.
It's very,
Yeah,
very
obviously,
critical
yeah.
to understand going into it.
Yeah, it's not always as objective as it could be. A lot of subjectivity, as Scott is saying. So, we want to take a shot with Delta and see what they can do for us. So I do have high hopes we'll get some benefit out of it. It'd be nice to supplement what we're doing for the buildings. We already have our RACP grant. So if we can leverage other ways to get additional funds for the buildings, I think would be helpful, instead of borrowing, the the full amount that we need to pay for these
Right.
two.
And I'm agreeing.
It's definitely a very large investment for the borough, over the next 3 or 4 years for these
Yeah.
new facilities.
And I do want to say it does, working in the grant space is extremely complex, and there's
It is.
one mess up on the
Yes.
paperwork and you're
With
done.
what I was reading.
The thing is that because we have some funding, both ARPA and the RACP, they can look at layering and leveraging that money. So it's not like we're starting from zero.
No, it's not, but I needed Jim's input to make me feel more comfortable. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I was not feeling comfortable. I needed
I
to.
easily fall asleep when I'm reading the type of material at 3 o'clock in the
And I
morning.
needed to approach you and get your input.
Yeah, no, this is another avenue. We're optimistic something's gonna happen, but again, if it doesn't work out, we can always terminate, for any cause in 30 days. So we shouldn't have too much of a exposure, and hopefully we'll have some real financial benefit.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Amy?
Next into the
Hot seat.
barrel. Yeah.
Okay, so on my list is policy development. A lot of the things actually that council has recommended for policy development for the borough, we've already either passed or we're currently working on. There's several examples that are on this list. The borough issued electronic device is the cell phone policy that's in your agenda today. Fringe benefit policy you passed last month, and we're going to be working on an internal audit as soon as Jim's done his financial audit. Code of conduct policy will be forthcoming. Program development, this council has expressed a desire to have a stronger performance evaluation program for our staff. That is something that is on my plans for this year. Training, with us having so many different changes in personnel, training and cross-training and succession planning, all of that has kind of been brought to the forefront that where we're lacking. So we're going to be working on a better program for that. And employee appreciation programs, as Dory mentioned, she does take care of the 30 and 40-year recognition for employees. But we're looking for other small, inexpensive ways that we can, show our employees that we appreciate them.
And even just like we were talking as staff, and a lot of this is staff's list, recognizing 10 and 5 and 20-year employees as well. I mean, they're all giving of their time, and they obviously like working here because they're staying. So we're doing something
Exactly.
right in that regard, so.
There will be a review of the organization chart. That is something that we like to do annually to make sure that our organization chart continues to make sense and we have the right people in the right places. The fundraising and development contract for the library, that is something that is ongoing. You guys did approve us to put out an RFP for that position. It's kind of fumbled there, but we are working on that. And hopefully we'll get that RFP out soon and we'll have somebody in that role.
Well, that's more difficult than what Jim was just talking about with the grants and associations, because you've got to have somebody that's tied into the
Relationship. Yes.
local
Yep.
community.
Correct.
That,
Yep.
yeah, it's far more difficult.
Developing an employee handbook is something that's been recommended from several people, definitely promoted by Dr. Rupp. It's something that we need to have because we don't really have an employee handbook. We've relied on union contracts to be our employee handbook, so to speak, for the different union groups. But to really lay it out there so that it's clear for everybody what the benefits are, and also clear for council what the benefits that your staff are receiving. the development of the facilities, recreation, GIS functions. These are 3 areas that we've identified as moving forward. We'd like to see these areas grow. I don't know if we'll be ready for the 2024 function, 2024 budget to see these areas as their own departments, but that is something that will be assessed this year. Employee safety training program, we have had our initial meetings with the insurance company. It is on your agenda today to approve the formation of a committee. We've asked 2 new staff members, Tom Brinson and John Bean, to head those. Both of those gentlemen were very active in the safety committees with prior employers, so they have experience running safety committees. So they're working on that for us. Benefit analysis for short-term disability. We are working with our benefit advisors to get some quotes to find out if it would be more cost-effective to go that way versus paying in-house for short-term disability claims. And the last 2 are just collective bargaining agreements. We have received notification from the United Steelworkers that their contract will expire at the end of this year, so they sent us their official intent to bargain. So I will be beginning the negotiations for that contract within the next few months. And then ASME White amendments to add the library group is in your packet today. So that has been settled, ratified by the group, and then just needs your approval tonight, so.
Thank you.
Amy, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
The cell phone plan that you decide to go with, thank you for your input. I appreciated the night of our committee meeting. It's ever so clear, and it's a very good plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. AJ and John? Want to grab another chair, and maybe John could introduce himself to council and to the public that's here? Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Sure, this is John Bean. John is our new Public Works Supervisor. As Amy mentioned, he brings a wealth of experience, not just in safety issues and safety training, but also a strong background in paving, the MUTCD, which is our manual on what we follow for installing proper and legal signage in the borough, and we'll kind of lean on him for passing that knowledge on down to our staff as we try to continue to kind of create an environment of, I'll say, consistency in those areas. So we've made some great improvements. We want to keep it department-wide. So for the Public Works Department, we have basically a baker's dozen here listed in your packet. You can see how I think, but I'll break those down into categories, and we'll do operations, public improvements, and then parks, which will be a big focus this year. So operations-wide, one of the big things that we've been working on is radio communication, and that's not just through Public Works, that's throughout the borough and all departments. It's critical to have communication between departments, and radios may seem old-fashioned, but they are the easiest and quickest way to get a hold of staff, especially when they're out and about in vehicles. We're looking for a grant to implement that, but as we buy new equipment and things come in, we purchase them with new radios so that we have those, but for the older equipment, we're looking for a grant to kind of do that and bring everybody on board on that. Also in operations and refuse, we've talked before in previous years, we've talked about like updating some of the dumpsters, updating some of our trucks so that they follow the standards of today and how the trucks are designed to be more efficient.
So you're moving away from the flat plate on the face to the 2 forks.
Right, correct. Away from the A-frame to the forks. so, which you see everywhere else. That allows us to save about 20% per piece of equipment that we get because that technology is phased out. So part of that is, we've talked before about the kind of cardboard shacks that you see at some of the businesses around town. We received a grant to replace those with dumpsters. We now have the trucks to be able to pick those dumpsters up. A lot of that was some of the stuff that was delayed by COVID for several years, so we're implementing that process now, so you'll start to see those slowly disappear throughout the borough. Just aesthetically, it's a big help, and it also is
So
more appealing.
we'll be
to-
going to cardboard, regular, whatever
Dumpster,
dumpsters.
yes.
And then cardboard-only dumpsters.
Right, yeah, where we have room for those.
And will contamination be an issue?
So it should be less of an issue, but yes, it will be a learning process, and we hope that folks will pay attention to how they're marked. They will have different color lids, and then they'll also be clearly marked on the fronts and sides that they are for cardboard only. We hit already on safety. So we want to standardize regular equipment and staff trainings. Amy mentioned that before. That will be a big push moving forward. Finally, operationally wise, my favorite topic, Columbia Gas paving projects. The really good move that has been made in this area is the county has done a big push now to get all utilities to put their projects out there and where they plan on going. So for the first time in several years, we have more of an idea of where Columbia Gas is going to work. It doesn't mean that they won't find something and take a left turn, but we have a much better idea of the areas that they plan on working this year and what they plan on getting finished. And that is a big help for us, and as we plan with our water distribution division to take advantage of just tearing these roads up one time and then trying to get them paved.
I think you've really done a great job there.
Well,
And
it's
coordinating it all and getting it,
much
done
appreciated. It's
at
often like the herding
somebody
cats
else's cost.
situation, but
well,
we have definitely made the most of the restoration phase of it for sure. Even though we may not have been able to keep control of where it was going and when, we've definitely made the most of the restoration.
when will you think we will have, the biggest question is,
So
when will
probably-
Broadway be done?
Right, yeah. Probably never, but this phase is probably 5 years coming yet. So the phase,
When will Broadway be milled and repaved?
so we're getting to that. Just
Okay.
that's the big,
I know,
puncher at
that's
the
the drum roll.
right. So we'll move on to public improvements now. A lot of these will be cross-department with planning and engineering, and obviously, we've talked about several times, we have all these opportunities with a lot of these grants working right now. So we've worked together, we're making sure we're staying on track and that the departments are aware of all the moving pieces on either side. So we're not duplicating efforts there. So that's the downtown streetscape improvements, so obviously that is a work in progress. Market house improvements. We have a grant-funded study there that we're currently working on. Both the management of the market and the facility where the market is housed. The Arley grant, which is the one we've been talking about lately, that's down here on the square, that they just did our survey for, where we talked about the other month where they were going to do our flyover survey. So that's a work in progress coming there. Two of the future jobs that we've kind of planted the seeds for are the Eisenhower Drive and Broadway intersection realignment. We've talked about that many times in here. It was a big push on our end to keep the county and the state focused on that intersection. When we brought Eric on board, that was a big help on me, because also pushing some other channels that direction. So they've just finished a study there. So we'll wait on the results for that. They should be coming in soon, and we'll see what their plan is for either realignment or retiming of that intersection out there. One of the big ones that we'd really like to push in-house for public improvement is the intersection on Eisenhower at Home Depot, Red Lobster there, that intersection. That is still wire span intersection, meaning those traffic signals still hang from wires there. That's been caught multiple times by trucks, sometimes by accident, sometimes it is just a plain accident. Sometimes trucks are not following procedure and have caught those and tear down that whole intersection, so it's happened way too many times. So we kind of have planted the seeds to position ourselves for future grant money there to go ahead and replace those with mast arms, similar to like what we have here in the square and the other intersections out there on Eisenhower. And then the big one, Broadway 194, that paving. We jumped on this right away. We got all the utilities in there right away. That job is happening this year. Not exactly as planned. They will start at Railroad here in Broadway and work their way out towards Eisenhower. One of the big things that the borough pushed for, the 2 set of railroad tracks, right there before you get to Stock Street, we had asked for one of those sets to be removed. The railroad had an issue there with their warnings and their crossing signals. There's also a private property issue that we talked about a couple times in public safety. The borough did everything that we possibly could to offer any help to kind of move the situation along. Some local elected officials also kind of helped. In the end, that short section there on either side of those 2 sets of tracks will have to wait with the PUC, the Public Utility Commission. That will end up going to court and waiting for a ruling there. So the rest of the road will be paved. That section there will be in limbo for a little bit, but I am confident that we will have a, maybe not the perfect resolution that we want of removing 1 set of tracks, but that it will ultimately be paved and updated with new railroad crossings. So,
Jay?
yes.
Yeah, we have with that set of tracks over there on Broadway, is that the set that goes through East Middle?
Yes.
Okay, so if you were to be allowed to take those tracks up, then we could confidently move forward with repairs. But how do we remedy the situation in the meantime? Because I know it's been tackled
Yes.
by the
So,
borough several
right.
times. It's so bad over there. I'm
Yes.
getting complaints all the time. I think, Brian, you are too?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the PUC has the ultimate judgment on that. The railroad has been more cooperative. We've tried our best. Like I said, we don't just say we want this fixed. We say, what can we do to help you fix this? So once you offer some of that support, it kind of brings them to the table. So they have agreed.
This is Genesee, Wyoming we're
Yes,
talking about.
yes, on East Middle Street. So
Right.
just to clarify, they have agreed, at least verbally, to allow us to work with them to repair those tracks at that crossing there. So that is a giant step. I know it doesn't sound
That
like
is.
much, but when you're communicating with the railroad, that's a very big step.
Thank you.
So they have agreed in principle to work with us to fix those set of tracks. The PUC has everything documented. So it will be a push here in the spring to kind of bring them back to the table and say, now let's make this happen. But they did refuse to remove that set of tracks. So
They refused or?
to remove
To
them.
remove.
So that it has to stay,
Okay.
but we're going to work together to at least repair the area of the
Well,
crossing.
there's also discussion for that same piece of right-of-way to extend what the York County Rail Trail Authority already owns up to Gits Run Road, up through there to Broadway,
Yeah,
you know.
unfortunately, they haven't been very receptive,
right?
thinking that they're going to still pick up business
I
somewhere
guess
on that
from
side.
Alloy
but-
Rods
So-
or ESOB, yeah.
but That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, AJ,
Sure.
especially
much.
on that railroad track there at East Middle. Thank you
Yes, you're
very
welcome.
much.
A couple of things that AJ didn't talk about were the open space plan that's in process to be
Oh, I
cleaned.
missed the whole park section.
If you want to hit your part, and then I'll jump on with
Yeah, sorry about that. You get into the road projects,
Yeah.
they're kind of exciting things. So the open space and recreation plan, that is in progress. Margie's been a great help there with her experience and kind of pushing that train along and keeping that moving, and really kind of expanding what we're getting for our grant money there. The recreation program, continuing to work with the YMCA to run the summer playground program that has been successful in bringing programming to the actual event more than just kind of getting together.
And we
with the
approved
kids.
that, correct, for
Yes,
this
sir.
year?
Yep,
Excellent.
yep. And then finally, our community development block grant, park improvements. So the two big ones that you'll see this year are Wirt Park, where we've had a great meeting with the YW and Snyder's Campbell to come together to also put money towards that project. So you'll see a park coming up there this summer. And then also at Bear Avenue, Margie was a great help there, getting us in contact with a rep when our initial contact dropped out and put us back into delay mode again. So you'll see that happen this summer too, and then also the continued improvements down at West Hanover Street Playground. So is there anything else you want to add?
I will just say this section also is where the Enhancement Committee has weighed in an awful lot on improvements going forward, and I think, Chuck, you're going to get some of those to me, and I'm going to plug those into here, is that correct? You would like to put that in order that you think, kind of at the committee, so.
Right.
So there's some other larger park-type things for this, and basically, we can talk about the, 2,500 acres that we own outside of the borough, and what we're going to do with that property, for the.
Would it create another borough?
For the use of residents and visitors alike, so that's part of this. In fact, we're going to be talking about some of that tomorrow.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
All
thank
right.
you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Next tag team's Eric and Tom,
All right.
and you can introduce Tom as well, Eric.
So Tom Brinson is our new utilities business manager. He joins us previously from Gypsum, Colorado, where he held the exact same title, utilities business manager. So he is very multifaceted. He is certified to operate treatment plants, water plants, all those sorts of things. So there was absolutely zero lag time in getting him up and running with things. He was able to just kind of jump right in and be of help. So we'll move through some things here tonight. Planning and engineering, certainly a number of things that we're engaged in right now. Redevelopment through the HEDC. So as you guys recall, certainly you formed an HEDC, which is a 501c3. And they are busy looking at different things to try and make investments into the downtown. How can they get that engagement from the community, and how can they be of service to council? And so we're looking for ways to improve on that and really get them moving on a lot of things. Certainly they were instrumental in securing the theater and some of that, so we want to kind of build on that activity. New public admin, public safety facility, certainly we've talked about that one. I was reviewing that today with Tom. We actually go back to February of 21, we've been talking about that. So for the last 2 years, we've been talking about these facilities, and really this feeds in even to the Public Works and Water Resource Facility. And what this council's been doing methodically through the Public Works and Facilities Committee is making sure that we're making informed decisions. Everything that we're doing, we're talking about things, we're looking at things, and certainly, as you heard Jim say, now we're beginning to look at the finances, and we're beginning to have that same level of informed decision-making on that, so that we can ultimately move towards brand-new facilities for the borough, which are very much needed. Rental database, certainly that was a hot topic. I don't think we need to go into that too much before, but right now what's happening and what one of the goals is to collect community feedback. And so what staff is doing and working with the manager is developing the questions so that we can start to ask the right questions to get data that will help guide what is the community's wishes and what is for the best of the community. So that's going to be ongoing. Library roof project, that is well underway. We're actually in the final stages of that now. So that's kind of coming to an end, but certainly is on the list still.
I would like to request a council, whatever, tour of
Sure.
that at some time in the near future, just so we can,
I
sort of
actually
see what's
just, I
going
had
on.
just asked AJ for that on Monday, if I
Hey,
could get a
brilliant
tour, so
minds
that if
think
we talk
alike,
about
right?
it, I've got some info for you, but we
Okay.
can put that together for everyone.
perfect,
that's a
because
really good
that's,
idea.
you know, the library is always a hot button, but I think it would be good that we all get up there and see what's going on. I'm sure, Tim, you've been up there and you're on board. Thank you.
Shepherd Myers Dam project, we are on track to have that completed on time, which is currently August. So actually, beginning in June, we're going to begin the refilling operations of that. Certainly those of you who were fortunate enough to be able to take the guided tour that we had.
Which was an excellent job.
Agreed, yeah, it was really time well spent. We got to go out and kind of look at things. If anybody that was unable to attend that would like to attend separately, just let us know. We'll facilitate, even if it's just one person. We can go out on a tour and kind of show you what's going on.
Would you take a few minutes to tell council about what could have been a setback, which became a win with the cage?
Yes, so one of the things that we became aware of late last week was that DEP is requiring a trash rack be added to one of the intake structures. Was not in the design plans, was not in the permits, but at one of the meetings, the DEP guy said, I want to see one. And you're kind of at their mercy. There's not a lot you can do when they want to see something. So we had to add it midstream. And the contractor put together numbers for it. It was around $25,000 it was going to cost us to do this. And was going to carry with it somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks in a lag time to fabricate it and get it on, which was going to ultimately then delay the refilling operations. So hearing on this, Department of Public Works engaged with us and said, we can fabricate that. There's no reason we need to have them do that. And so they were able to get the steel, and they're actually working on the fabrication towards the end of this week. And we will be doing a change order, removing it from the contract now again. So we will not be paying them $25,000. We're going to do it in-house, and it will be done in a week and a half, not 6 to 8. So just a good example of opportunities being realized with staff, taking advantage of some really talented staff that we have, and save the borough quite a bit of money and time. So yeah, that was a good win for us. Other items, fire escrow ordinance. This has been on my list since I came here. This borough does not have an ordinance that deals with what you do when buildings get burnt, and not just burnt in the way that, you know, we can clean them up a little bit and they're back in operation. We're talking about, you know, when there's large-scale fire damage, and making sure that the borough is well positioned, that that building doesn't just sit there. What we don't want is a building to get burnt out and sit there for a long period of time. And what we find sometimes is insurance money comes in, doesn't always go back to where it's supposed to. And that's unfortunate, because then that leaves us with a blighted property. And so a fire escrow act is a tool that a municipality has to actually insert ourselves into that conversation and make sure that as that money comes in, it is being applied directly to that fire building, and those repairs are made to get it back in
To either
operation.
fix it or remove it.
Yes. So that's something we want to look at as a goal. And then finally, under planning engineering is iWork platform. You've heard me preach to you several times about when we moved to our permitting over to the iWork platform. We've had that platform now for 2 years. So I think it's time that we just check in, make sure that that's still the best platform for us. Certainly we made some investments in time and money for it, but you know, it's always good and healthy to check in and make sure you're still getting the most operation out of that. You know, you don't want to just get complacent and just let it go and then find out later you spent $20,000 more than maybe you should have spent. It would be nice to see if maybe we can bring that entire platform actually into the rest of our GIS package. And Esri, who does our GIS package for our utilities, has a solution for permits and code enforcement, things like that. So it's worth looking at. Maybe we won't change, but we won't know that till we go through those motions. Moving into water resources, these are some of the things that Tom and I are going to work on together here. Water meter modernization, you've heard that one before. So that is well underway. I think the number as of now is around 2,600 we've put in so far. Now that's out of 18,000, so we still have quite a bit to go. But to get to 2,600 in a short amount of time is no small feat. And the work goes on with the meter department, and certainly working with Amy, we're having discussions about perhaps ramping up our own in-staff effort because we can do it cheaper than hiring it out to somebody else to do it. So we're starting to look at some of those things. In-borough water rates, this is going to be something where, you know, we came through the PUC rate case, we looked at our outside borough rates. Certainly we want to make sure we just have a conversation about our inside, you know, are they where they need to be, and are they properly aligned with the services being provided? Treatment plant, one of the projects that Tom's really has some experience with and is gonna help us with is gasification project. So this is something that the Sewer and Water Committee is looking at right now, but there may be a real opportunity here to take what's a waste byproduct and actually turn it into a revenue stream. And so we're gonna start doing some work exploring that, and Tom has some experience in that with his previous employer, so he can help guide some of that as well. LBS, the intake tower, unfortunately, as I sit here tonight, we have 2 broken gates on that tower. We're unable to really get in there and get at them to fix them. We've kind of figured out a workaround so that we can keep the water levels where they need to be, because without Shepherd Myers online, LBS is my primary. But we need to start taking action soon to get through the permitting and engineering so that come next year we can have a capital project to replace those gates. And by that time, Shepherd Myers will be back online, and then I can do what I need to do.
So Shepherd Myers is back full and fully usable. We're willing to take that risk.
Correct. Yeah, it's not a gamble that I want to take tearing into that. I think we
Dollar-wise,
could do it and not affect the level, but I'm not going to gamble with that.
Dollar-wise, you're talking
$500,000, $750,000 probably to replace all 4 gates. Maybe more if we decide to replace the main primary outlet as well. So that's something we're
under 2.
I'm sorry.
Under 2.
Under 2 million.
Under 1.
Yeah, under 1 hopefully.
Okay.
How many gates do we have, Eric?
Four operating gates and 1 primary gate on the outfall
Okay.
that hasn't been operated since the late 70s. So I don't know what that looks like when we get down there and start to look at it. I have an idea what it's going to look like, probably like the other 2 gates that are broken.
So if you have to replace them all, that's where I was headed, under 2?
Yeah, under 2 for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Flow metering, I don't want to get too far in the details on this, but one of the things that we do is we coordinate with McSherrystown, Conewago Township, and Penn Township every year. At the end of the year, Amy and I work on this massive spreadsheet that is used to track that intricate flow of sewer in and out of the borough. It has to be done because ultimately that's what determines how much these municipalities pay us for sewage treatment. And one of the things that I've been looking at for some time is, can we get away from spreadsheets and just use real-world modeling? You know, can we use meters in certain key manholes and actually figure out what that level of going out and into our system is, take all the guesswork out of it, make it a much simpler exercise, and really improve on the level of accuracy with it. So,
Eric, on that flow metering, will that also be designed in a manner in which we can identify where we're getting infiltration?
depending on where you would put the meters, you'll be able to see areas that are what we would call responsive to rain events. So in other words, where a rain event goes up, if that meter all of a sudden spikes as well without a level of flow coming from businesses and things, you could make certain deductions. If we want to really look at I&I issues, then we kind of would need to ratchet that meter program down one level even further to perhaps add more meters in key places to try and figure that out where that I&I was. But it certainly could be done.
I think it's worth doing because it helps us target
Absolutely.
where we need to do
It should be
treatments.
targeting your maintenance, it should be targeting a lot of things, but yes, it's a valid point. Let's see here, so capabilities for GIS, one of the things Tom and I have been working on a lot is ramping up the use of GIS, trying to get away from paper maps. Paper maps are great when you're sitting in an office. They're not great when you get called out for a blown water pipe, backup in a sewer, stormwater pipes not functioning. That's when you want to be standing there with access to your maps to be able to pull them up, see what you need to see, and make good decisions based off of that. We have been using GIS for many, many years. But we need to start ramping up how our staff is engaging with that. This borough's made a big investment in GIS.
Is everybody on the council familiar with the acronym GIS? Darlene?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I looked
So
it up.
basically, it's our mapping, it's our digital mapping,
Yeah.
but we keep finding ways in the water department to use it and leverage it. For instance, all of the water service cards that are stored upstairs in the vault used to only be accessible when Dale had a water break. Dale would come in here at 3 in the morning, open the vault, find his card, then go respond to the water break, because he needs that service card to tell him where the connections are. We've now modernized that to the point we scanned every one of those service cards. We've tied them to the property as a dot. Dale goes out in the field with an iPad, clicks on the dot, and he has the service card now. So it's efficiencies like that that we're trying to realize, just making ourselves able to offer the services that we do very quickly without having to have lags, and certainly keeping paper backgrounds and things like that. So when you hear things, like from Amy about investment in GIS positions and things like that, that's what we're talking about. Right now, we lean very heavily on our partners at Gannett Fleming to help us with that, because we don't have in-house GIS people to build some of those applications and maps that we need, so we have to hire out to have that done. And we are getting better and better with it, but we still need to ultimately have somebody who's kind of the keeper of the gate with that stuff. Finishing up then, internal work order system, that's something I've been talking with Councilman Kress about, potentially looking at the school district system that they use to see if maybe there's a way we can integrate that into borough operations, looking for both the public and departments to have a way to communicate about work orders. If I'm driving down the street and I see something that is, a limb down, I'm able to get into the system and put in a work order request so that AJ will get it and he can assign it to somebody, and then that can be taken care of relatively quickly.
And very importantly, and it has a customer feedback loop that says the requester.
Correct. Yep.
Their request or.
And it can be done then
was
also to
fulfilled.
help us with metrics on employee utilization, making sure that we can see, who's taking care of them, how long are they taking, and things like that.
Would this system allow,
Now, if you don't have a system.
It is done now by a phone call. Hey, AJ, I found a tree down. Can you get somebody to take care of it?
Okay.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then,
It would,
and they take care of it. But
Sure.
the point is, without that ability to kind of track it through the system.
system, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work well. And then to AJ's point, without the radio system, it makes it even more cumbersome.
Right.
Because they're not always available to get, and things like that, so.
Eric, would the system allow for an app for citizens to submit information on area?
We're actually
action?
working on we've looked at another platform that may tie into our website that's able to do something like that. I don't know that the work order system itself is going to have a public engagement piece. That gets a bit funky when you're
Yeah.
opening the platform
I just
up.
wanted to see if there was that interconnection.
But it could come in through this other platform and then be assigned through the work order system is how I would do it.
Okay, good.
Yep. Bulk water fill station, so for those of you who don't know, we sell water in bulk to pool fillers and things like that. It actually is a decent business. I mean, if you go out there, especially now, you'll see a long line of trucks waiting to get in there to fill up.
What do we gross annually on that?
I don't have a specific
idea?
number.
Number on the top of the head?
Yeah, we'd have to
Be
pull it out
curious
of the
to know.
budget to see.
I don't
But the point of it is that the system we have now is not very efficient. They do have to sit there for a very long period of time. When it goes down, we have to turn them away and they have to go somewhere else. So we really could position ourselves much better to be that provider to sell that water for those uses. We've talked about actually building one on the south side of town. There's an area there in our system that actually has some dead spots in it. The water doesn't get turned over a lot. That would actually help us in that case. Even somebody who
Sell them
approached
our
us.
silk.
We had somebody who actually approached us and said they would pay for the entire thing. They said the convenience of it alone is worth them, that they would pay for it if we would find them a place to land. So there's opportunity there. I think between Tom and I, we need to kind of figure out what makes sense. But maybe we can do something, we can add an additional fill station, maybe modernize the one we have. And then finally, general specs and construction details. As I've taken over the water world, in January, we need new details. We don't have good details. We don't have good specifications. They're not aligned with where the industry's at. And so we need to spend some time to put together specifications so that we can hand them to developers and contractors and say, this is what you need to build it to. Right now they do that, but they only do that after they come to us and we have to sit down and talk to them. And it just is a lot easier if we had adopted specifications that we can hand them and say, these are the rules. This is what you have to go by. So a lot of things across planning and engineering and water resource. Like I said, Tom just rolled up his sleeves and dove right in. I don't think there was much of a beat missed from Colorado, so.
Less snow.
What's that?
Less snow.
Less
We have
snow,
none.
more oxygen in the air.
Welcome to North
Any
Florida.
I would like to add 3 potential things, if I may, please. These are in no particular order. One would be a competitive rate analysis of our, obviously, competitors, and a proposed path forward. Number 2, this builds on, Eric, what you had sent me, the map. How can we expand our authorized territory? What's the process for doing that? Because obviously York Water knows how to do it. And then lastly, this is a little out of the water supply, but the I&I program that we have, definition of it, and what our completion goals are on it to make progress, because we've been doing this for, I don't know, 2 decades, and I don't know what kind of progress that we've made, but I'd like to see some sort of a plan with specific milestones and, you know, a proposal to get to, obviously you never get to 0, but to get to something. Because my understanding is in a rainy day, we're taking in somewhere between 8 and 12 million gallons, with our average of being 4.5 to 5 million a day of legitimate usage, so.
Which, Scott, goes to the metering that I brought up.
Perhaps, yes.
You need to know.
The metering is how you build the baseline to understand what you would do to mitigate it.
Right. And the other thing was, what's the gross of our swimming pool water sales, and what would be the justification to expand it? But I think it's a good idea, absolutely.
Eric, I have one.
Thank you.
Planning and engineering, as it relates to the fact that we're moving forward in the final design of the 2 building facilities. We need to start looking at the relocation of the recycling facility.
True.
Say that again, Chuck.
We need to start looking at the relocation of the recycling facility, because
Yes.
it'll be gone. So,
What the
or
pitfall is.
if there's a need, because there's another item that I want to have on the list, but I don't think it belongs here.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Very good job.
I'll jump in here for library department. And just give you a little bit of an update. Later on in the agenda, once again, Amy's going to have something on there about Ryan Bankert accepted, actually, she just is naming something about an interim library director that we have to process here at this meeting. But Ryan Bankert did accept our proposal to take on the interim director, so he's familiar with the library. He's willing to do it for this period of time while we're in search of a librarian. So
Do you
these
need a
goals,
motion to approve that?
later on. Anyway, so the goals may shift a little bit because we'll have a new library director at some point in time. So just so you know, a couple of things that I weighed in on was to institute a passport service program, just something that I brought from somewhere else where the library had a passport service. It's one of the things that libraries are permitted to charge for. The public really enjoys having it at their library that they're patronizing anyway, so they're there, and it's just a good service to provide, and it's something we can recoup some money.
What does that mean? If,
You're gonna get, if you would like to get a passport to travel abroad, libraries can help you to do that. That type of passport.
Got it. I thought it was like a
Like a United
proprietary
States passport.
concept. No, okay. That's great.
And then the other thing that I had asked of the previous library director was to help to create a business plan with a goal of operations and maintenance solvency. So that was just something, as I'm coming into this, 4 months today, not really having too much to do with the
4
work.
months today.
Yeah, not having much to do with the work group and, their goals in that. Up until now, I'll be delving into it a lot deeper with bringing a new librarian in and how are we going to move forward. So We'll have more to report on that going forward, but not right now. So I guess we're up to Police
I think
Department
that's
and Chad.
like a very obvious goal. Sadly, it's
Does
never
the
been in the
library
forefront.
working group still meet?
No, the library working group does not meet any longer.
Is
This,
that defunct then?
it was I mean, the council president can name committees as needed, and this was a named committee for a specific amount of time,
Okay.
as I understand it, and that time has passed. So. Chad?
Good evening. So our primary goal in front of you here is to finally complete and push through the accreditation process. This has been in the making for several years. Obviously, last year we got pushed off of track due to staffing issues. And as most of our officers wear hats, many hats, in addition to their primary role as officer or detective, Detective Camp, who was our accreditation manager last year, obviously was pulled for other resources for covering street, et cetera, and was unable to complete his duties in trying to get the mock assessment set up last year. So right now, he's approximately halfway through looking for the proofs. So again, there's about 139, 140 standards that we have to show that we are doing correctly by the standard. And for each year, so this being our first year, we need 2 proofs for each standard. So Detective Campo has to go through either training files or incident reports and look for copies of those proofs, so when the assessors come in and look, they can see that we are doing it by the book. Once that is completed, that's probably the hard part, getting to that point. Once we get to the mock, which I'm hoping to do midsummer, the mock assessors will give their recommendations, and then from there, we'll make any corrections, and then we'll be looking to set up a final assessment, hopefully by the end of the year, and become accredited. In addition, while not on the list in front of you, it was part of the 2023 or 2022 annual report. Goals within there is also to continue to provide quality services to our citizens, and we do that in a number of ways. One, continue to get our officers to trainings to increase their knowledge on a myriad of topics. 2, we try to solve problems rather than put Band-Aids on them. And 3, we look to in ways to try to streamline and become more efficient in our process. I just learned today that we're being considered for a pilot program for the electronic submission of non-traffic citations. Those are citations that are issued for offenses like disorderly conduct, or ordinance violations, et cetera. We already do this with traffic citations, so officers being able to do this will save time in that they're not writing down a hand citation. As they're typing it in, it's already being transferred into our RMS system also. So that provides more time for the officer to get back out in the street and patrol.
They do that directly in their vehicle on their
computer, yes.
laptop. It's there.
Yeah, and so most of the personal information, like traffic citations, the barcode on the back of your driver's license, we have a scanner in the car. You scan the driver's license, that information auto-populates into the form. So it has been a real time saver with the traffic citations. And also, as this year, as a rebuilding year for staffing, as we get those officers back on the street, we look to be more proactive in problem areas, whether it be traffic complaints, addressing like the new borough ordinance with noise. We look to try to make a presence downtown, especially Fridays and Saturdays in the coming warm months, and address those issues such as loud music being played from cars, people revving their engines, yelling, et cetera, and disrupting people trying to enjoy the ambiance of downtown.
I think that'll be very helpful as more and more businesses are having outside places for people to eat.
Yes.
That'll be great. I know you told us this 3 times before, but for the 4th time, could you tell me what's the importance of being accredited?
So, accreditation, I think, is, like any business, not just for police departments. You have an association of peers, which, this is the PA Chiefs of Police, that come up with best practices for the business or organization or whatever your career is. And so when you get accredited, you're basically getting a stamp of approval that you're following best practices in your profession.
Okay.
All right, and so that can lead to, to one, just pride in knowing that that's the agency you work for, But also, you can see a savings in liability insurance reduction itself.
All right, thank you. I won't ask you again, I promise.
That's okay.
Based on Dr. Rupp's comment, could you please share the best practice standards with us as council? I'm assuming it's like an ISO 9000 or whatever.
I can provide the PDF copy.
Yeah,
for
not,
this.
not necessarily where we are, but what
Sure.
the goals are.
Yep.
And you talked about the benefits. Another comment that I've heard from a lot of people is they would really like to become more personally acquainted with the police force, where maybe they're, you know, on bicycles or outside of the vehicles, where they get to, you know, feel, touch the downtown business merchants and so forth. I do think that would be very beneficial.
Okay.
I guess that was the other one, but I definitely would appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Chad, how many times a year, I've seen the police on bikes and walking. How many times a year do they do that?
So the bike patrol actually has taken a hit because of staffing. So we primarily are using the bikes now for major events like Memorial Day Parade, Halloween Parade. We look to increase that, you know, as staffing gets back up.
Right.
As far as getting out in patrols, you know, officers on day shift, every officer in the department, we have a community policing areas program now where the borough is broken down into, I believe it's 32 geographic locations. Each officer is assigned at least 2, if not 3 of those locations, and they're assigned to get out and walk those locations for 30 minutes each month. So that has been in effect for the last 5 years at least. So yeah, the purpose for that is for, you know, the officers to get out and talk with the citizens, and as the citizens see the officers out, you know, most definitely feel free to get out and talk with those officers. That's what they're there for.
I mean, that's really key. In fact, I'd like to be able to learn to know more of them by name, just
Sure.
because I think that's,
Well, what you've used, though, it's been very favorable.
Scott, I have a couple other items that weren't discussed that I'd like to figure out where the council may want to put them.
go for it.
A couple years ago, we developed a proposal for a grant to study the refuse and recycling program, how we can enhance it, better it. That got tabled with the transition with Nan. I'd like to see that come back. The other thing I'd like to
So wait a
point
minute,
out
help me title that.
is refuge and recycling
Okay, refuse and recycling grants, management.
services, you know, kind of evaluate it a bit. But the other thing is, and unless I'm mistaken, that particular service of the borough doesn't fall under any committee. Am I correct?
Oh, where it falls under?
It's always been under
Public
public works,
Works.
but with the focus being on facilities, that kind of took that off of the regular agenda. We can do regular updates there again.
Well, with it being enterprise, I wasn't sure whether or not it should fit within sewer and water, seeing that was sort of an enterprise fund as well. So I just, if it's a revenue stream activity, whether it should fit. That's what I'm putting
When you
out
think
there.
of- Well, I'm writing this refuse and recycling grants was sort of the title I gave
It's a
it.
study.
So
It was a
it's
study. Solid waste,
Solid waste.
Right.
Okay.
to kind of look at that, and just sort of where it fits, how it fits within the borough.
And AJ, you say what the organization that owns that would be?
It existed in public works previously.
Okay,
We've done lots of
Thank you.
parking study items and trying to look at how we begin to take that and implement, particularly the concern with the surface lots, how we might be able to have partnerships with the businesses to maximize the surface lots, and how that might look.
But did we talk also about funding that, like where the money would come from to make
Correct.
those lots be attractive and easy to see?
Correct. I think it's critically important, with particularly the downtown and those activities. And the last one, I don't want to, throw it at Eric or AJ, but
well, just for 1 second to hold on the last point you were just on. Because I sort of think that with the, I'll call it identification and branding, if you will, Barb, of the lots, that I think we just did put all new signage up and so forth. Do we think that's a step in the right direction?
Well, yeah. Yeah,
And do we feel there's more that needs to be done?
there's considerable more. We've got parking lots that aren't even paved. So, you know,
Well, okay.
there's a lot that needs to happen with the parking lots. But also just the idea of partnering with those that have large parking lots that go unused in the evening and things like that. How we can open that up a bit more.
Okay, so it's utilization of private parking spaces.
Correct.
I think
Got
we
it.
also use our newsletter as a way to let people know where to park too. You know, to look for that sign, maybe have that sign in there, you know, that sign they have at all the parking lots now might be helpful.
Chuck, I thought we started to work on that, and we were going to contact people to see what they thought
don't-
of our plan.
We got
Did
the study done, but we haven't put an implementation plan together for it.
But we
Right.
do have the study.
We have the study that was done for the, what was the name of it? I forget now.
But Chuck
The
makes
demand, we had the
additional
demand study
private
done.
Right, but Chuck makes a very, very valid point. We've spent a good bit of money on studies, and the studies are, in theory, are the tool that gives us the information to make the next move. It's not creating an encyclopedia to put on the shelf.
So we have to use it.
Exactly. Dr. Rupp is spot on. So we need to be able to action item these studies.
I didn't get it.
I don't know, actionization, is that a verb? Did I make that up?
Probably.
All right.
Yeah.
The last one I have is more as a residential intersection safety study. And looking at, because as the borough has continued to increase in its apartments, communities that used to have a house with 2 cars, now a house with 6 cars, and they're parking right up to the stop sign, but you can't just go, well, we're just gonna eliminate the parking there because we now have all these people and all these vehicles. And
Nor do we want to put a sign up, 4 signs at every intersection.
But it is a safety hazard when we require developers to have a visual triangle of an intersection, and we don't have that same visual angle in our intersections.
That
So,
includes street trees.
well, yeah, I mean, street trees, but again, you know, you got cars that are parked right up, because there's no place to park. And so there may be intersections that need to have a 4-way stop, because you can't see the vehicles around the other vehicles. So I think that it's important that we start looking at that. If, you know, of course, the apartments are the apartments. It's the number of cars that are there have now doubled, if not tripled, within the very limited space that's available.
So what would you say the action is, Chuck?
Is to look at our highly density areas and just do an evaluation of the safety, the visual safety intersections.
I like
don't
the
know
way
what
you worded
call
The way you worded it, Chuck, residential intersection safety study.
right.
And that would go with safety, public safety committee, and then the surface lots and utilization of private lots. I mean, that's gonna rest in staff probably partially, and also public works and facilities, I'm assuming.
So it's identify high-density residential intersections for driving visibility? Is that?
It's intersection safety.
Yeah.
That's what,
It's simple, yeah.
Okay.
it's pretty straightforward. You can.
I'm
you
just
got
trying
your-
to put a-
You got
a
your percent angles and
verb
can you
around it.
see, right? If you can't see, you either have to eliminate parking up to the intersection or you need to put a 4-way stop.
Just like
What is the law on that,
Chuck,
chief or
where
AJ?
you have railroad and.
Well, I can't.
15?
No, I'm talking
30 feet
railroad.
off of any controlling device at an intersection.
Do
So
what?
30 feet off of all stop signs and traffic lights.
Oh, we don't have that anywhere.
Okay, 30
I'm
feet.
just bringing up one
We don't have that
area
anywhere.
Right.
30 feet?
where my own husband, you know, they didn't stop for the stop sign, and he couldn't stop. It was early in the morning. And the guy was texting. But the fact of the matter is that we are going to get rid of that problem because we're removing, right, AJ? We're removing 2 of the parking places. We discussed that in public safety, right?
Right, yes, that's just
But if we're in that cross-section where we have the cars already parking, where do we put them?
Well, that's the reason for the
Well, so it
evaluation.
improves the safety, but it
But you were working
demeans
on-
the parking.
What?
It improves the safety, but it
We're not doing the study now.
Mr. Chairman, he asked for a study, and we're trying to solve the
Solve the
problem.
problem, right.
This is
Well,
the time
fair
and
enough.
place.
It can go to public safety. There are standards and rules, so,
Okay.
Where we put it.
right, yep.
Goes to
Yeah.
committee.
AJ, I have a quick
Thank you.
inquiry for probably Public Works. Besides the obvious overtime impact on the payroll, is there a reason that we don't flush hydrants at night?
So, yeah, so that's water distribution, but yes, a lot of that I think does fall back on overtime.
Yeah,
So it's that balance of
that's the big one then.
convenience and cost. So sometimes it is better for the public because of the issues that hydrant flushing does cause sometimes. The last thing you want is to be doing that, into the early morning hours, and then that's when you're getting up and getting moving at your house. That's when you're, turning on your water and using it. So that causes issues there. No matter when we do it, it's always going to be some type of issue. But that's just one of the drivers for no longer doing it at night.
Yeah. I figured it was something like that. It's twice a year, right?
Yes. Thank you.
I do have a comment about the goals. One little tiny comment and then a big comment. The tiny comment is, I would be most appreciative if the Borough Council could set some parameters before we do any collective bargaining agreements. So it makes it easier for Amy, so at the end, we don't have a big mess of like, we didn't agree to that. So if we could do that before, it'd be easier for Amy at the end as she negotiates those contracts, if the council sets the parameters in terms of percentage increases, that kind of thing. And the other big comment I have is, what you've provided here is phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing. It's an awful lot of work. It's pretty incredible. But I'd like to see all this information turned into about 10 big goals so that we can publicize, these are our goals. We can't publicize all this because people get just lost in the words. Because this is what you're going to do to accomplish something. Like you're going to make the Borough Council more financially solvent. And you can put a whole bunch of little processes under that. Sure. I just don't think these are goals. These are action plans, and they're wonderful, but I think we just need
we need goals, and then
goals.
we need ways to measure that we all
yeah,
agree
then we-
whether we're
yeah, and
successful
I
or
don't want
not.
20 or 30 goals, like maybe, I don't know, 10? I don't know. A lot of those kind of cross over in the departments. sure. I mean, I'm sure that you guys can do it pretty easily, but I think you've done a great job with this, really. Thank you. Good. Thank you.
Up to $50.
Right. Are you good? So, where does that bring us here? Where the AFSCME White contract, Amy?
So, as I mentioned, AFSCME White contract, as approved back in 2021, was amended with the addition of library personnel. They petitioned to join the union last year, and we've come to an agreement, which was before you today. A lot of the things didn't change much, because as a non-union employee, their benefits are, most benefits for non-union employees are tied directly to the AFSCME Blue contract. So non-union employees still get those benefits anyway. So these are just establishing that their benefits now will match AFSCME White, which is the office staff here at the borough. So I'm not going to read these. So the summary of those changes was provided in your packet. So if you could make a motion to approve that tonight, that'd be great.
All right,
Make a motion for
motion? Second? Any discussion? Okay. All right,
Okay.
we have a second. Those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Amy. Next.
The next item before you is a communications manager position. Many of you probably read this the job description and said, isn't there somebody already doing this? She is. But unfortunately, that's not what her job really is. It's just that she's so good at this type of thing that she's kind of run with it. And so we'd like to make that a formal position for her. And that way she's really can focus on the communications part. And, you know, many of you have commented on the improvements to our newsletter, our press releases, our websites. All of those are because this person has really has a talent for that kind of thing. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the public. So I'd like your approval to designate this position for this person. And then we would obviously have to backfill her finance role. Where the hole that she will leave is right now she's doing the grants management. Right now she's doing the NSF collections, delinquent account collections, all of those things. And obviously that position needs to be bolstered as well. The grant management, as we're getting into all of these grants and stuff, having somebody in-house that's just tracking to make sure that not our large scale ones, like the buildings or RACP, you know, which are being managed by separate companies, but the smaller scale ones, like our rec grants and, you know, things like that, to make sure that we're meeting all of the deadlines and tracking what we're receiving and submitting for reimbursements. So, so it's kind of so my request from you tonight is to approve the designation of the position, but also with the understanding that we will be backfilling that position.
Okay, I guess I have two questions. One would be the expansion of this, or extension, however you want to phrase it. Is it within the approved budget and/or the expected outcome of our current spending?
Yes.
Jim, you concur with that? Okay.
Jim, you concur.
And then the other question would be the grants management that you referred to. Is that more of a part of that now going to be covered by the third party that we're engaging for grants?
No.
They're
No.
just finding them.
The different, yeah, the Delta
These are the
is
smaller ones
finding
then.
it and right, exactly.
Got it.
Yep, this is, and
Okay.
we have a
Thank you.
lot of grants. There's a lot of money out there, and we've been very aggressive with going out and applying for those grants. But there's a lot, once it's been approved, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of follow-up that has to be done, and if that follow-up is not done, we don't ever get that money back. So somebody who's just making sure that the paperwork is in place, right?
With the
Right.
importance of the overall grant management and the fact that she's doing it, are you thinking, or is staff thinking, that we will continue to ask her to do that until we literally hire her replacement?
Yes.
In essence, okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to.
Because she is wearing those two hats
She is
now.
wearing two hats, yeah, and that one hat's they're both important, but that one hat's financially important.
Right.
Yes, yep.
She's probably wearing more than two hats.
And I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, at least 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was right when I first got on our council that we recommended having a communications person.
Yes.
And finally, good things do take a while. Now we're finally getting one, which is good. And I would like a review of that position after 6 months.
Okay.
I'm sure that she's going to do a great job, and she'll be able to say all the good things that she's done in the 6 months.
Okay.
Okay, so we need a motion then to move forward with this?
And I'll second it.
And if we have a motion and a second, any comments? All right, those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Interim Library Director.
So as Margie mentioned in her summary of the goals for the library, and the reason that Ryan is not named in your memo is because as of when this was prepared, he hadn't agreed to do it yet. But we did ask Ryan Bankert, who is the Adult Services Manager at the library, to take on the interim role while we recruit for the director position. He has agreed, and that would be effective the day after Shayna's last day, which would be April 29th.
How much time are we given to get a director at
So
the
there,
library?
that was a good question, because I asked the same thing. There's no deadline necessarily, but we have to be actively recruiting. So as long as we're actively recruiting, we're good as far as the state requirement.
How do you prove that you're ongoing looking? How do you show them that you're ongoingly looking?
They actually participate in the recruitment process. So YCL, we provide them with the job description, and then they post it on their website. They send us qualified applicants that they receive applications for. So they participate in the process with us.
Do we think we're going to need to hire a third-party executive recruiter, or we'll be able to do this through more modern digital means?
I think we'll be able to do this in-house,
Yeah.
Okay.
especially since we do have the support of YCL for this.
I'd like to make the motion to appoint the interim director.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 3, alternate right-to-know officer.
So I'll do this one, I guess.
It just came up in communication that we're going to be down our right-to-know officer because she's going on vacation, so, and we should have a second person, so we do have an alternate. Go ahead, Amy.
So that's the gist of it. Dory's
All right,
going,
I'd
Dory's
make a
going on
motion to approve it.
vacation. We have 5 days to respond to right-to-know requests, and I don't know how this has never come up before.
Right.
That a right-to-know, if a right-to-know request would come in, and we don't have somebody to respond within 5 days,
I'd like
we'd be
to
in
make the
trouble.
motion to approve the position.
Second it. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next.
Okay, next.
I'd
Also, as-
also like to make the motion to form a employee safety committee.
Love
Second.
that. Thank you.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I'll take the next one.
Yep, I think we should also adopt the cell phone policy. That's a motion. There's a
Okay,
second.
approved. All right. Item
I'll stop
6,
there.
Shepherd Myers Dam. Amy, you
love
want
it.
to talk about that?
Nope.
Let's get things done.
Already talked about that.
We're saving it for Eric.
Yay.
Well, he explained it.
All right, so I sent to you in your packets a fairly detailed memo, which is an analysis of not just this change order number 6, but actually all change orders to date on the project, which is Shepherd Myers Dam. And specifically, what change order 6 includes is what we're calling escalation costs. So as we know, we're certainly in a sort of unprecedented time with the rate of inflation, with the price of gas and other things. And when you have a project that stretches out over several years, this is one of the things that can kind of bite you a little bit with these things. So the contractor has basically come to the borough and said, look, these are my escalated costs. We don't have a clause in the contract that says we are obligated to pay them. But we also have a contractor who has been doing a top-notch job. They have just been absolutely killing it. They've been getting their work done. They're on schedule. Aside from these things, I mean, we're on budget. We're well within
So
tolerance for
if
change
you were to
orders.
summarize, the original budget was 9.5?
Your original budget was right around 10 million, correct? And we opened bids at 10.8, and
And where are we saying we're going to finish?
you're going to be around 10.3 right now. We still
You're saying
have things that are still being built,
We
but
budgeted 10, and we're going to be up to 10.3,
about 10.3, yes.
so it's 3%.
If you, yes, so They're a little bit apples and oranges, though, because what you're looking at that's going to have you at 10.3 is not necessarily change orders in the sense of what this is. Those are what we call compensatory change orders, which are really where, when the designs are put together, you estimate how much dirt you're going to dig,
I
how
get
much
that.
steel you're going to put in things. And when you
And then the reality
actually do it,
comes
the
in.
reality sets in and you have to align them. So yes, you're going to end up there, but often we back that out of change order calculations because it's
So the
it's just
chairman of
cost it.
Building and Grounds, Mr. Kress,
Yes,
would you make a motion to approve this?
I would love to.
And I'll second it.
All right? Mr. President,
You
Mr.
were
Ricard?
originally
What's the total numbers, my biggest question?
Change
That
order
you're asking for,
6.
because there's several.
Yeah, so you're not contemplating tonight the amount that gets you to the 10.3. You're only specifically focusing on change order 6, which is
$135,000.
a total of $77,595.65. That's all that's in front of you tonight. The rest, we'll come back when we're done and we can tidy it all up and tell you
But
where that ends
you're,
up.
you're still telling me that includes, we said 10,
Change order 7.
2-3 years ago, whenever it was, and now we're saying 10.3 plus 3%.
Plus
After we
77.
just came through a year of 10-ish% inflation, and Chairman of Building and Grounds is,
Yeah, I think that they've done a great job with what they're doing out there at the dam and keeping the costs low as they
and I
possibly
have
can.
the utmost confidence in Mr. Kress.
Terry, we were originally somewhere around 10.8, but we reduced it back down to 10.3.
You
right?
opened bids at 10.8 and we instantly
Right.
negotiated $1 million worth of contract deducts
Right.
to go backwards.
Right, so with all the gas and everything that has risen, the inflation, we're going to be evenly sharing that with the contract.
My proposal in my memo
I
was
read
that
it,
it be
yeah.
split. Again, I think we couldn't have accounted for it. I don't think they
Right.
could have. So it sort of begs the question that it just be split.
Okay,
But that's my opinion.
Yeah,
The
okay.
77,000 is the split?
It
the
is.
half?
Split it.
Yeah, if the full ask was about 135, if we were to fully cover that, and I don't believe that's appropriate.
all right? So we've got a motion and a second. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I am opposed. Just one vote.
Brian, would you kick him? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Eric. And you, the tour the other day was very revealing, and a couple friends of mine said they were very impressed with it.
Yeah, it's a really nice
So-
facility. It's something to be proud of. I'm going to sit up here because I'm also on the next one, which is 460, 470.
Okay.
So without belaboring this, you have in front of you your planning commission recommending that you would conditionally approve a land development plan at 460, 470 High Street. This is down in the area where Swam Electric is, just adjacent to where the surplus cabinets and landscaping supplies and all those
The
things
point
are at.
there at 5 points.
They want to build a single building. It does require a land development plan, so they've been working the last 2 months through Planning Commission. It is now recommended for conditional approval.
Will they demolish anything there?
They've already knocked the building down. It was actually used as a training exercise to take it down.
Oh, okay. Did fall down then.
Oh, it fell down when they were done with it.
Good.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
all right,
so
got it.
we need a motion,
So motion.
second. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Bill,
That makes sense.
Happy.
you're good with this one? All right,
Who seconded?
Me.
Thank you.
Mr. Kress. Okay. Number 8, public safety. Dumpster storage units. Rather ironic that they're the same.
Okay, so this ordinance came out of collaboration between codes and Public Works and the Police Department. Over the last several years, there's been several, requests to put dumpsters on the streets, and it's always, all right, you put them here, this is what we expect, but there's no teeth to enforce this. So basically, this addresses public safety and quality of life issues and creates a permit process where we now know and control where these dumpsters and our storage units or pods are placed along the street. And it also gives the borough some teeth to enforce the recommendations or the requirements of the ordinance.
Okay. A motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The only thing we're doing here is approving the advertisement, right?
Yes.
This
Yep.
time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill? Good? Okay, number 9, Public Works and Facilities. You guys are ready now. You're like keeping up with
How
us.
about it? We're ready. So we are asking for approval to sell at auction again 15 items on the municipbid.com website. We had great success last year. We are asking for permission to sell these 15 items in your packet.
Two questions here.
Yes.
What's our net book value on these items? Jim?
So these will, at the end, these will be sold for no less than scrap value.
I mean, steel, 60, or what, $20 a ton, or $20 a hundred?
Sure. So, yes, that's where we will set the auction to begin and move from there. The auction, if approved, tonight will go to council, and the auction will begin the day after council. It will end the day before next month's finance meeting, so then you will then be able to approve the sale of these items.
I guess, Jim, my question is, our net book value of these items is something, but if we sell them for less, it really doesn't matter because it's only a reference item anyway, isn't it? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move it along.
Okay, equipment leasing.
We have, right under A, we have an AI. It is worded a little differently, that's my fault. Because as we giveth, I would now like to taketh away. I would like to use some of those proceeds. We had a backhoe retire without permission. After 25 years of service, it did not receive an award, so I guess it decided to hit the road. We lost the
broke?
transmission.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, we lost the transmission, we are down. We are asking for permission to purchase a backhoe on state contract. Bob Barker would tell you the retail price is $254,000. We're looking at a CoStar state contract price of around $150,000. We were just requesting that the funds from the auction could help offset the cost of the backhoe. That would be purchased out of the I&I and sanitary sewer departments. They would share that cost, so 2 enterprise funds would share that cost, get a new backhoe, and rotate this backhoe down through the system then, so that it would ultimately
backhoes
then
do we
replace the
have?
1998.
How many do we currently have in service?
So there
Just
are.
enough.
Yeah.
Just enough.
It actually
Not
is
minus
just enough.
one.
Right.
Right.
So there are 3 excavating in the water department, that's shared by the entire water department, 2 in public works that's shared by both public works and the transfer station, and 1 that is shared by sanitary sewer and the I&I department. With this one out of the mix, it slows everything down.
I caution us as a group, we were chastised perhaps by the auditors saying we seem to have, Jim, an excessive amount of capital equipment. So I will support whatever you say we need, but
You really feel this
I
is
say that.
needed.
Yes.
When we lose one, we have to replace it.
Yes, I mean, we are running at a bare minimum. And when I say bare minimum, the problem is when we lose one, then we're either going out and renting one,
Okay.
or we're taking more, I guess, wear and tear on another one that we shouldn't
So
be.
based on
Shutting
yours
down
and
jobs.
AJ's,
Right.
I will make the
Right.
motion.
100%.
Based on
I'll
my
second.
confidence in the 2 of you.
AJ, are we leasing or buying?
No, so when you see the
Yeah.
word lease in here, it is
Right.
financing.
Yeah, it does.
So it's a
Diana,
government lease, we are financing, we own the equipment.
Right, it's a
Okay.
capital
So we will
lease.
take what we
Correct.
sell
Yeah.
in junk, like steel, that you want to get rid of
Right.
now. And that will be used to buy and purchase toward what we need,
Correct.
correct?
Right.
I like it. Yeah, see any other
So
way to do
I'll
it?
make the motion based on my confidence in
And I'll second
AJ
it.
and Tim. Second,
I second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, AJ.
Sure. Now we have equipment leasing. Letter B under Public Works. So as I just mentioned, equipment leasing there is not what you think of as a lease where we have the equipment, then we turn it back in after
These
making
are
our
capital
payments.
leases.
Yes, so we are just financing this equipment. What this is, you have in front of you in your packet there, explained in your memo, there were 3 leases that we started during COVID when we ordered this equipment in 2021. We started paying on these leases. We did not receive this equipment until late 2022. Some of this equipment is coming within the next week or two. Basically, what we are asking is to make up the difference from the 2021 price to what we are now receiving as 2022 and 2023 models. So we are asking.
So they're a year and a half or 2 years late delivering them?
Yes.
We've been prepaying
Correct.
payments, and now we get charged a premium?
So we were prepaying on
That
a 2-year-old model. Actually, it worked out very well for the borough. So while we were paying on these things that we did not quite have, most of what you have in this 15 item list here are these items that we were replacing. So they lasted long enough to get us this far, at least. Several of these items we replaced with grant purchases.
Yeah.
Some of these we will not be able to, and that's where we come down to these leases.
Jim, you're
So-
good with this? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Kress?
Yeah, we went over this pretty long and thorough, to say the least.
So you're making the motion?
Yes, I make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. AJ, thank you. You better get out of here before you get in trouble, right? Okay, reports of council members, council committees, and other public bodies. Does anyone dare say anything?
I would like to say something, Mr. Chairman. We are approximately getting very close to 5 inches shy of rainfall for the year 2023. And if you all remember what the weather used to be like in April in this part of the world, this is the wetter time of the year. So
It is not.
nothing's official, nothing's even been bantered and run up the flagpole for discussion. But it would be a prudent thing for those individuals who care about the world we live in to start thinking about being maybe more conservative-minded with water and their water use practices. So we might maybe be hearing something a little bit more about this if we do not get out of this
So
drought
might it be
cycle.
prudent for us to send out something to our water customers?
No, I just to mention right now, maybe it'll get more formal later.
Because truthfully, I didn't know that, and I understand you're in the water business, so you're sensitized to that.
Yep,
I haven't washed my car yet this year.
kept my eye on you.
Bill, is there enough water in the new developments out of Penn Township, et cetera, for what we're doing?
That's a staff
Is that
question or
hurting
a
us,
organic question.
the development or the growing developments? Is that going to hurt, or is it hurting our water supplies?
Depends upon what model you want to look at. Obviously, if we
Okay.
have an average year, probably not. If we have a drought year, yeah, then every drop of water becomes more and more valued and more coveted and precious. So certainly a tenet of good management of said resource is always looking at what we have during good times as well as bad times before we make decisions to expand our system. No offense to you, Councilor Rowland, you had asked as one of our goals to potentially look at how we can broaden that. I
No,
kept
and
my mouth shut at the time out of respect, but the question's on the floor now. Part of that sound management is we're not just going to start selling more water because we want to. We have to have that.
We have to have the
product.
supply. Can't sell from an empty wagon.
Correct. And for my 2 cents, I believe that people who are in the system right now have more standing than those who want to be hooked on by whoever is looking to potentially develop something. So, hope that answers your question.
Thank
No,
you.
that's a very good
That's all I have.
statement. Thank you.
Yep.
Item 11, management reports. Have we any that we haven't already discussed?
Nothing additional.
All right. Item 12, correspondence and information, the Memorial Day Parade. Is somebody going to ride with me on the truck this year? Or do I have to sit by myself again? I feel kind of silly.
Nope.
Tim, I'll get you one of those red fireman hats.
I'll have all my vehicles in the parade, all my vehicles.
Okay, maybe I'll get the Chevelle out.
Well, if you want to take your own car, you have to, there's a form, a letter from the parade chair in there, how you can do that. If
Okay.
you want to ride on the fire truck, let me know, I'll tell Tony.
All right?
You want to ride on it?
No, I just said, forget it.
Sorry.
Wasn't important.
Additional public comment. Maybe Brian and I could drag race in a piece.
I'm more than happy.
All right.
What about the noise ordinance?
Open pipes. Additional public comment. Item 13. Any in the room or online?
Online?
I'm just tempted to raise my hand, but I'm not.
Don't you dare. It's 9:10.
9:10.
Okay, the next item, adjournment. May I have a motion?
Second.
A second? A third?
We're done.
Those in favor? Thank you all very much.